The world talks too much, but the Stoic wins in silence. In today's world, everyone is trying to be heard. People argue, explain, defend and react, all to prove a point. But the man who stays silent, that man controls the room. You don't need loud opinions to be powerful. You need control, and control begins with silence. The Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, didn't win arguments by shouting. They won by staying calm. They let others waste their energy while they saved theirs. They didn't react to insults because they knew. Reacting means giving your enemy control over your mind. Every time you over-explain yourself, you're saying, "I need your approval." But the Stoic doesn't beg for approval. He knows who he is. And when you know who you are, you don't need to prove it. This video will teach you that kind of strength. You'll learn how to stay silent and watch the truth reveal itself. Use calm to unsettle the loud. Let your silence say more than words ever could. And build a level of power so solid, no one can shake it. Let's begin your journey into Stoic silence, where we speak less and control more. 1. Overreaction is their control. Detachment is yours. Most people don't argue to understand you. They argue to control you. They poke, they insult, they twist your words. And then they wait to see you explode. Because the moment you overreact, you're no longer in control. You're emotional, you're distracted, you're defending instead of deciding. That's exactly what they want. You raise your voice, now you look unstable. You explain yourself, now you look insecure. You try to fix it, now you're doing their emotional labor for them. This is the trap, and it works on most people because we're raised to think silence is weakness. That if we don't react, we're being walked over. But the Stoics knew better. They understood control isn't loud, it's quiet. Marcus Aurelius didn't yell in courtrooms. He didn't beg others to agree with him. He ruled not with noise, but with presence. He stayed calm when others panicked, and that calmness became his advantage. That's what Stoic detachment means. It doesn't mean you're numb. It means you're disciplined. You don't react just because someone wants a reaction. You don't dance because someone plays music. You stay still. Because when you're calm, they have nothing to feed on. Their game dies the moment you stop playing. Ask yourself this: how many times have you lost peace just trying to prove your side? How often have you ruined your own energy reacting to things that didn't deserve it? Now, think of the times you stayed silent. Think of how uncomfortable they got when you didn't reply. That's not weakness. That's dominance. So from now on, let this be your rule. When they try to pull you into chaos, don't step in. Watch. Breathe. Detach. Let them wonder why they can't control you anymore. Because when you master your reaction, you master the entire situation. 2. The power of not explaining yourself. Most people waste their life trying to be understood. They explain their pain, their side of the story, their reasons, their intentions, and still they're misunderstood. Why? Because the people you keep explaining yourself to often don't want to understand you. They just want to control how you feel. They act like they didn't hear you. They twist your words. They pretend to not get it, so you try again. You speak louder, you over-explain, you start doubting yourself. And that's when they win. Because when you explain too much, you look unsure. When you explain your silence, you break it. When you justify your decisions, you hand over your power. The Stoics never explained themselves to everyone. They believed that truth doesn't need to shout, it just needs to be lived. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If anyone can refute me, show me I'm making a mistake, I'll gladly change. It's the truth I'm after." Not approval, not attention, just truth. That's real power. You don't need everyone to agree. You don't need everyone to like you. And you don't owe explanations to people who disrespect your boundaries. In fact, the more silent you are about your decisions, the more serious people take you. They can't twist words you never said. They can't argue with choices you don't defend. Let your actions speak. Let your presence speak. Let your silence speak louder than noise. The person who explains too much is seen as guilty. The one who doesn't explain at all is seen as dangerous. The second one, because when you stop explaining, people start guessing. And when they're guessing, you're in control. Remember, if your truth needs permission to exist, it's not truth, it's performance. And the Stoic doesn't perform. He moves, he chooses, he detaches. Say less, do more, and leave the rest unsettled. 3. The stillness that shakes them. Why calmness is power. There's a silence that feels weak. And then there's a silence so solid, it makes the entire room nervous. That's the kind of calm the Stoic masters. Not a fake calm, not passive silence, but deep inner stillness. Stillness that says, I'm not moved by your chaos. Most people live in reaction mode. You push them, they explode. You insult them, they defend. You test them, they break. But the Stoic doesn't respond that way. He doesn't let the outside world enter his inner world. He observes, then decides. Not because he's cold, but because he's in control. In a loud world, nothing is more powerful than being calm. It makes people nervous. They can't read you. They start doubting themselves. They wonder what you're thinking. And that mystery shakes them more than any argument ever could. Seneca said, "A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary. When you panic early, you lose twice. But when you stay calm, even under pressure, you send a message, I am unshakable, and people feel that. They may not say it, but they notice it. You've seen it yourself. Someone stays quiet in an argument, not because they're weak, but because they've already won. Someone walks away without a single insult, and their silence stings louder than words ever could. That's the power of stillness. It's not loud. It doesn't demand attention, but it changes the temperature of every room it enters. So from now on, when people try to provoke you, test you, unbalance you, don't fight for control. The control. Breathe. Pause. Say less. And let your calmness make them question everything. Because when your mind is still, you become the storm without raising your voice. 4. Detachment is protection. Not everyone deserves access. You were taught to be open, to give everyone a chance, to keep the door of your heart wide open, even when it hurt. And look what that got you. Disappointment, mental exhaustion, and a long list of people who drained you, used you, and left you confused. Here's the truth. Not everyone deserves access to you. Your time, your energy, your mind. These are not public property. They are sacred. And the more people you allow in without filtering them, the more chaos you invite into your life. The Stoics knew this well. They believed in emotional boundaries, not because they were antisocial, but because they were selective. Marcus Aurelius didn't speak to please everyone. He didn't seek comfort in crowds. He spent time in silence, reflecting, guarding his mind like a fortress. You should too. Detachment isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's realizing that some people belong in your history, not in your future. That not everyone deserves to know how you feel, what you think, or where you're going next. When you detach, you protect your center. You stop giving emotional discounts to people who haven't earned it. You become harder to access, and that makes your presence more powerful. Think about it. The people who always need to explain, to please, to fix, get exhausted. The ones who observe, detach, and choose carefully, stay calm. Don't let guilt trick you into giving people another chance. Don't let loneliness lower your standards. And don't confuse detachment with bitterness. Detachment is not shutting the world out. It's letting the wrong people fall away without chasing after them. Let people wonder why you stopped texting. Let them feel the silence they once ignored. Let them earn their place or lose it. Because once you stop giving access to the wrong people, your peace returns like a soldier finally home. 5. Silence is a message. Stop filling the space. Silence makes people uncomfortable. That's why most of them rush to fill it. With small talk, with explanations, with nervous laughter. But the Stoic, he lets the silence speak for him. Because here's the truth. Silence is not empty, it's a message. Every time you respond too quickly, you give away your power. Every time you over-explain, you give someone the chance to twist your words. And every time you try to fix the vibe by talking, you make yourself smaller. But when you say nothing, people lean in. They get nervous. They start thinking, did I go too far? Are they mad? What are they thinking? That's the power of strategic silence. It makes them confront themselves. Seneca once said, "Speech is silver, silence is golden." And the Stoic understood when to speak and when to let silence cut deeper than words. Sometimes not replying is the best response. Sometimes walking away without closure is the strongest boundary. Sometimes letting your absence echo is more powerful than your presence ever was. Stop filling the space just to be polite. Stop answering questions that don't deserve answers. Stop explaining yourself to people who already made up their mind. You don't owe them your words. Let them sit in the silence they created. When someone disrespects you, don't try to explain why you felt hurt. Go silent. When someone gossips, don't join in. Stay still. When someone provokes you, pause and let them feel their own noise. Because silence puts pressure on them. It forces them to face the gap you left behind. And when used correctly, it becomes your sharpest weapon. Not because it attacks, earthward, but because it forces them to face their own reflection, with no words left to hide behind. 6. The mind is a fortress. Control what enters. Your mind is your last line of defense. If you lose control there, you lose control everywhere. In a world full of noise, opinions, negativity, and manipulation, the real battle isn't out there. It's inside your head. That's why the Stoics treated the mind like a fortress. Not a fragile one, but a stronghold. One with gates, guards, and walls. Because once you let something in, a word, an insult, a lie, it can take root and grow. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself. You have power over your mind, not outside events. He knew the world would always try to disturb him, but he refused to hand over his peace. And you should too. Most people let anything in. A stranger's insult ruins their whole day. One hateful comment on social media makes them doubt themselves. One bad conversation lives rent-free in their head for weeks. That's emotional chaos. And chaos only enters when your gate is wide open. From now on, tighten the gate. Be selective. Don't let just any voice, opinion, or mood enter your mental space. If someone speaks with disrespect, close the gate. If a thought is based in fear, close the gate. If a situation drains your energy, walk away and close the gate. Control what enters your fortress. This doesn't mean you become cold or isolated. It means you become wise. You filter everything through a simple question. Does this deserve space in my mind? If the answer is no, drop it. Not with hate, not with revenge. It is with silence and control. Because when your mind is calm, focused, and clean, you move through life like a king in his castle, untouchable, clear, and unbothered by the noise outside your walls. 7. Let them misunderstand you. It's a test of power. One of the hardest things in life is letting people misunderstand you and doing nothing about it. Henry Elbowsam. You know what they said is wrong. You know their version of the story is twisted. You know their assumptions don't match your truth. And yet, you stay silent. Is that silence? That's not weakness. That's discipline. Because anyone can jump into an argument. Anyone can defend their name. Anyone can beg to be understood. But only a strong mind can sit in silence, watching lies float around and still feel no need to correct them. The Stoics mastered this. They didn't chase truth through noise. They lived it. They knew if your character is clean, time will speak louder than you ever could. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't waste time arguing what a good man should be. Just be one." People will lie about you. They'll twist your actions, question your motives, judge your silence. Let them. Because the moment you try to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, you enter their trap. They don't want truth. They want your reaction. They want you to look desperate, emotional, unstable. And when you stay calm, they lose interest or reveal themselves. There's deep power in this. When they lie and you don't correct them. When they insult you and you don't flinch. When they test you and you don't move. That's not ego, that's elevation. Let people gossip. Let them guess. Let them choke on their own imagination. The truth doesn't need their approval. And your peace is too expensive to spend on their games. When you rise high enough, even your silence starts sounding like thunder. 8. Withhold your energy. Not everyone deserves a reaction. You don't realize how powerful your energy is until people start chasing it, until they start provoking you just to get a piece of your attention. And the truth is, most people don't want to connect. They want to pull you into arguments, into gossip, into emotional traps that drain your peace and steal your focus. But here's what the Stoics knew. Not everyone deserves a reaction. Not every comment needs a reply. Not every insult deserves your attention. And not every situation is worth your energy. Energy is your most expensive currency. Give too much of it to the wrong people, and you'll find yourself empty, bitter, and angry for no real reason. You'll walk away from conversations that leave you feeling smaller, not stronger. All because you reacted. But the Stoic doesn't react to everything. He chooses where his energy flows. Because he knows, wherever your energy goes, your life follows. So, how do you take that power back? By learning the art of withholding. When someone disrespects you, don't feed it. When someone tries to bait you, don't bite. When someone talks behind your back, don't chase the rumor. Just stay calm, stay clear, stay unavailable. Because the moment you stop reacting, people start adjusting. They realize you're not emotionally cheap. They realize you don't run on approval or outrage. They realize their chaos has no effect on you. And that's when the dynamic shifts. That's when your silence speaks for itself. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." And most of that waste comes from reacting to things that don't deserve it. Think about it. How many times have you lost your peace over someone who wasn't even thinking about you after the argument ended? How many times did you spend hours replaying a situation in your mind that meant nothing to them? That's energy theft. And you allow it when you don't filter your responses. So make it a rule. If it costs your peace, it's too expensive. If it drains your mind, it's not worth it. And if reacting makes you look weaker, stay silent. You owe the world nothing, but you owe yourself everything. Your energy is gold. Guard it like treasure. Give it only where it builds you, never where it breaks you. 9. The exit is louder than the explanation. Walk away like a king. Sometimes the most powerful move is no move at all, just a silent exit. No warning, no dramatic goodbye. Have you? No final paragraph explaining why you're leaving. Just stillness. Just distance. Just disappearance. Most people stay in places they've outgrown. They explain themselves to those who never valued them. They keep talking, hoping to be heard by people who were never listening. And the longer they stay, the more they shrink. But the Stoic, he walks away with dignity. No noise, no begging, no chase. Because he understands your exit is your message. When someone disrespects you, don't argue. Leave. When a situation drains your soul, don't explain. Leave. When you feel your peace dying, leave. Not because you're running, but because your presence is too powerful to be wasted where it's not honored. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet still practiced detachment. But he did. They let things pass without clinging. He let go without drama. He wrote, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." And that's what makes your exit loud. You don't need revenge. You don't need closure. You don't even need to be understood. You just need you, intact, undisturbed, and free. Here's what they don't tell you. People remember who walked away in silence far longer than those who stayed and screamed. Your calm exit haunts them. It forces them to sit with their actions, their loss, their own noise, without your energy to distract them. When you leave like a king, you leave with honor. You don't slam the door, you let it close on its own. You don't prove your worth, you let your absence reveal it. Then over time, they come to realize you were the peace. You were the clarity. You were the light they couldn't see until it was gone. So let this be your strength. You don't have to stay where you're not respected. You don't have to argue for a place that should have protected you. And you don't have to give a speech to people who lost the right to hear your voice. Just walk. With silence. With strength. With certainty. Because when you leave without a fight, you prove you were never the problem. And your exit becomes the most powerful sentence they never expected to read. 7. Your silence is your legacy, the final Stoic truth. At the end of it all, it won't be your arguments they remember, not your anger, not your long explanations, not the moments where you tried to prove your worth to people who refused to see it. No, they'll remember your silence. They'll remember how you stopped replying, how you stopped defending yourself, how you pulled your energy back without warning, how you stood still while they spun in circles trying to make you move. Because silence leaves a mark. It echoes long after the words have died. It forces people to confront themselves without your voice to soften the blow. This is the final Stoic truth. The most powerful people speak the least, not because they have nothing to say, but because they no longer need to be understood. Marcus Aurelius wrote his wisdom to himself, not for approval, but for clarity. Seneca's letters were filled with calm reflection, not noise. Epictetus, once a slave, taught that true freedom is control over your own response, not your surroundings. All of them knew what most of the world forgets. The man who holds his silence holds the room. The one who doesn't react becomes the mirror, and the person who doesn't explain becomes a mystery. You must become that person. You don't need to announce your growth. Let your absence prove it. You don't need to win every debate. Let your calm reveal who's really in control. You don't need revenge. Let them feel the void where your chaos-free presence used to be. Every time you stay silent in the face of disrespect, you rise. Every time you walk away instead of arguing, you evolve. Every time you protect your energy, you become untouchable. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them wonder. And let your silence grow so loud, it becomes your legacy, a legacy of unshakable peace. A mind that cannot be disturbed. A presence that commands respect without a word. That's what Stoicism teaches us. Not how to be numb, but how to be strong. Not how to hide, but how to rise above the noise. Not how to avoid life, but how to move through it with power, clarity, and calm. This isn't the end. This is the beginning of a quieter, stronger, more focused version of you. The version who doesn't chase, who doesn't react, who doesn't explain. The version who sits in silence and lets the world adjust. Final reflection. The quiet path to absolute strength. If you've made it this far, you already feel it. Something inside you has shifted. You're no longer hungry for noise. You're no longer chasing the last word, the final explanation, or the need to be understood by everyone. You've tasted the power of silence, and now you don't want to go back. Because now you know. You don't rise by being louder. You rise by becoming quieter, focused, sharp, intentional. This is the path the Stoics walked. It wasn't built on applause, praise, or public victories. It was built in solitude, where no one clapped for them and no one understood them. But they understood themselves, and that was enough. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire and still reminded himself daily that emotions must be trained, not obeyed. Seneca had access to wealth, power, and luxury, but still taught that peace only belongs to the man who can walk away from anything. Epictetus was born a slave, And yet, mentally, he was freer than most kings. What gave them this power? Not more arguments, not more followers, not louder opinions. It was silence. It was clarity. It was the ability to detach from what didn't deserve their energy and focus on what truly mattered. Control, and that's the shift you're making now. You're learning to walk away with grace instead of anger, to pause instead of react, to hold your energy like treasure and give it only where it builds, never where it breaks. The world will keep shouting. It will keep provoking you, testing your peace, mocking your calmness. But now you know, you don't owe them a response, because when they get loud and you stay still, that stillness becomes your crown. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to remember, your mind is your kingdom. Protect it like your life depends on it, because it does. Let this be your legacy. Not someone who was always right, but someone who was always in control. Someone who didn't need to prove anything, because their presence already proved enough. So walk forward now, not to argue, not to fight, but to master yourself. And remember this every time you feel tempted to speak when silence would be stronger. The loudest voice in the room isn't the most powerful. The quietest one that doesn't flinch is, let the world wonder. Let them talk. Let them spin in circles trying to understand you. And you? Stay calm. Stay still. Stay untouchable. Because this is your final evolution. You are not here to be heard. You are here to be felt without saying a word.